Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir. I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and thank you for networking this information to anyone and everyone you know and love. The more people educated with the facts and the truth, the more people that become empowered. And the more empowered, the sooner we end this reign of terror. Oh boy, do we have terror now. Implemented by whatever you want to call it. The globalist cult, syndicate, New World Order crowd, criminal international banking syndicate, a deep state, shadow government. It's all the same. A relatively small group of individuals. No, that's not fair. A small group of scum who want to strip you and every person we know and every person in the world of their remaining freedoms and liberties. To call them control freaks is not being kind to freaks. These people are, in fact, psychopaths. And they hold no value for human life other than their own. And an example of that, I believe, is that every war that we've been witness to somehow has its ties, and beyond ties, implementation, escalation, end result related to the globalist syndicate. So out of peace, when there's peace, they don't get more power or more control or can money launder and have more financial resources. It's through war. So the title of today's presentation is Why Have Peace When the Cult Demands War? There's a point in time that the public can have an enormous positive effect on preventing war versus being used for cannon fodder by the globalist cult, right? You don't see a Rothschilds, a Rockefeller, a Lazard, a Pincus, a Warburg, a Seif, a Loeb, a Paysor, top of the pyramid. You don't see them going to war, right? Nah. But you see the Smiths and the Jones and the Jandas and your name. That's who goes to war, who is the cannon fodder. Yeah. Go back to the 1930s and 40s. A nasty dude by the name of Herman Garing. With the old Nazi group. Quote, naturally, the common people don't want war. No, they want peace. You and me, we want peace. But after all, it is the leaders of a country who determine the policy, all owned puppets of the syndicate, right? The warmongering syndicate. And it is always a simple matter to drag the people along. Whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders and therefore be put in harm's way. Garing goes on, this is easy. All you have to do is tell the public that they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for a lack of patriotism and exposing a country to danger. It works the same in every country, end quote. And it has. That's been a big part of the globalist playbook. But let me tell you what unravels their playbook. When the public, in large numbers, start asking questions and demanding answers. And here we are on, I believe what the globalists want to initiate is a world war. And if they would have their druthers, they want it to go nuclear. Mm-hmm. It's part of their whole reducing the herd operation. Because they see it, they'll be safe in their little bunkers and all that, right? Underground, whatever, like rats. They think they'll be safe. While the rest of us get turned into mist. And they're fine with that. Why? Because, as I mentioned, they're psychopaths. And that is not an overstatement or hyperbole. That, in fact, is the case. So the questions they don't want you asking, in particular about this event, and any event leading to war, whether it was Pearl Harbor, whether it was the Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam, whether it was the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. They don't want you asking, wait a minute, or this. How did this happen? So let's particularly look at this latest globalist constructed event. On October 7th, 2023, a group of known terrorist savages that had been known for many years were able to launch a surprise attack by air, sea, and land against one of the most sophisticated, well-funded militaries of the world without being picked up ahead of time or on the day of the event by the intelligence agencies of that country that are known to be some of the most insightful, well-funded, operationally effective intelligence agencies in the world, who are tied to 5 very large intelligence agencies in countries: the United States, the CIA, Britain, MI6, Canada's intelligence agency, Australia's intelligence agency, New Zealand's intelligence agency. We're able to subvert them, and the most secure, technically superior border security operation on the planet that has had billions of dollars funneled into it. These savages that utilized pickup trucks, bulldozers, hang gliders, drones, that had been training for months in Lebanon. They don't want you asking, yeah, okay, how did this happen? A group of freaking horrible savages from this organization called Hamas, known terrorist organization. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's how it happened. And the bought-off lamestream fake media, tentacle of the deep state, don't want you asking, now, wait a minute, wait. How else did this happen? A concern is that, in a sense, this was allowed to happen. I mean, they moved that concert, which was a death concert, from a safe area close to Egypt to Gaza 2 days before. And at the previous location, they had incredible, supposedly, state-of-the-art security. And at this location where they moved it to for the October 7th situation, concert, no security. You'd like to ask the people who did the move, but supposedly the 2 organizers of that event, they died in the event on October 7th. This doesn't smell right, folks. Doesn't smell right at all. And it doesn't smell right because the cult demanded war. And that's what we're getting. And they're escalating that war. U.S. vetoes UN resolution for Gaza ceasefire as Biden, his visit failed to calm fears leading to a wider war. Do you think that's an accident? They put the mumbling, stumbling, incoherent puppet there of the cult to escalate the situation, not de-escalate, right? The draft resolution at the UN, again, a globalist organization, so they weren't going to let anything come out that would lead to peace. The draft resolution was proposed by Brazil and condemned the terrorist attacks by Hamas, urged the release of hostages, while calling for a humanitarian pause or ceasefire. 12 members approved the draft. The UK and Russia abstained, and the United States took the resolution down and blocked it as a veto member. Go back to George Orwell from his book 1984. That's actually kind of like a playbook, unfortunately, for what's happening and has been happening over the past decade in this country and around the world. Quote, "The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. Hierarchical society is only possible on the basis of poverty and ignorance. In principle, the war effort is always planned to keep society on the brink of starvation," end quote. Yeah. And remember, I've quoted one of our country's heroes, most decorated Marines, Smedley Butler, Major General Smedley Butler, who in 1935 wrote a book, War is a Racket. And in that book, he outlined that the people calling the shots are the bankers. The bankers call the shot on if a war is going to happen, how a war escalates. And when they've made enough money and had enough useless eaters bite the dust, when they can say, oh, let's come to a truce. Because we have another money laundering operation we're going to make more money on over there. Yeah. Jim Quinn, a political analyst, wrote the following. In case you haven't noticed, your overlords want you to replace your virtue signaling, quote, I support Ukraine, end quote, message in your social media with their new, quote, I support Israel messaging for their latest war. After wasting $160 billion on character actor World Economic Forum puppet Zelensky in their futile attempt to bleed out Russia and Putin, they're about to throw in the towel on that debacle and move on to their next debacle. Of course, they don't really consider it a debacle. No, it's a money laundering operation. Yeah. And power grabbing and control grabbing. Their arms dealers and their financiers on Wall Street have satiated their profit hunger at the pig trough of continuous wars. How convenient that just as the Ukraine war is about to be lost, the most militarized country on earth with the most glorified surveillance state mechanism in history was suddenly surprised by a bunch of third world Muslims using pickup trucks, hang gliders, and improvised missiles and bulldozers. It almost seems like the entire episode was coordinated theatrical production, with innocent civilians, useless eaters like us, used as the cannon fodder to generate outrage and hate. The innocent die, while the creators of chaos profit. Yep, that's their playbook. Jim Quinn goes on. No one will win this Israel versus Hamas war because no one's meant to win this war. Biden is already doling out first $8 billion to Israel, and now he wants, $14 billion more? On top of the $244 billion we've handed out over many number of decades' time. On top of the billions we already dole out to Israel, which they use to bribe politicians, U.S. politicians, to give them even more money, contracts, and influence over our country. No one will win the Syrian war. No one won the Libyan civil war. They won't allow a true end to the Ukraine war. Iraq and Afghanistan are just on the back burner until they need to ignite those powder kegs yet again. War is a racket. Always was a racket. Always will always be a racket. Just as Smedley Butler told us in his book, War is a Racket, back in 1935. The racket is promoted through propaganda, right? And endless propaganda at that. What happens time and time again to escalate a war is when our military is put in harm's way. Event occurs. Unsuspecting personnel die needlessly. And that's the cause to escalate the war. Think of Pearl Harbor. Whether you like it or not, there's evidence that is documented that shows that there were a number of people in the hierarchy of the United States government that knew that there was going to be an attack on Pearl Harbor, but allowed it to occur. Maybe they didn't realize the magnitude of the attack, but they knew there would be some loss of life, and that loss of life then can be parlayed into an escalation leading to involvement into the war. Think of the Gulf of Tonkin for Vietnam, right? I'm concerned that we're seeing that right here and now. That they're setting the seeds for escalation across the board. And we're seeing this with some of the missile attacks going into Syria and Iraq. Question, why do we have such a big presence in Syria and Iraq right now and have been? Well, why do we have so many personnel there? So that we have a number of casualties there from the rocket attacks. And then we had, I mentioned Biden's visit. There was an escalation event on many different planes, one of which is when he was there, he accidentally, remember, Gary Barnett, political analyst, there's no such thing in the accidents, coincidences, or incompetence, is all planned. Biden doxed U.S. Special Forces, Delta Force members, by posting an uncensored photo of them with Biden while he was in Israel. Did he target them so that our adversaries, let's say, or terrorists would know who they are and snuff them out? Biden has a history of doing this. Go back to what he did with SEAL Team 6. Remember, he doxed them. And next thing you know, they all get shoved in one large helicopter and they all meet their end. The interviews we did with Charlie Strange, his son Michael, was one of the SEAL Team 6 members who died. The interviews we did on our platform with Doug Hamburger, one of the members of SEAL Team 6 who died, his son Patrick. There are beyond a lot of questions. There are actually a lot of information that's flowed forward from what happened there. And it's not pretty. And the bought-off lamestream fake media doesn't want you to know about it. And neither does the Syndicate. How do I know that? Because when I did those interviews with Charlie Strange and Doug Hamburger about what really happened, it's on our platform, it's in our archives, years ago. The censorship that occurred with those interviews, the funny electronic events that occurred after I aired those segments, was without question the cult trying to block you getting that information. But you see, a targeted event directed at our military personnel will escalate because they're using the Pearl Harbor playbook. They're using the Gulf of Tonkin playbook. And a reason to escalate for further involvement. And as I said, we already have these missiles. We already have a couple dozen U.S. personnel that were wounded. We already have a Special Ops Marine 3-star general advising Israel on their Gaza offensive. But I am concerned, and a number of my contacts that are former military are concerned, that we now have 2 carrier groups being sent over to this event, quagmire, war in the Middle East. There's, as I'm recording this, there's talk that one of the carriers is going to go and a number of our ships are going to go through a number of choke points that make them very vulnerable to attack through the Suez Canal, and then into the Red Sea, and then around the Strait of Djibouti, where Yemen has already been firing missiles and reportedly have access to hypersonic missiles. Now, according to my sources in the military, by the time the target of the hypersonic missiles realize an attack is coming, the missile's already hit. And that we don't have the defense capability of knocking down a hypersonic missile going at, Mach 15 or something like that? So there's a choke point in the Suez Canal where a carrier or any ship is vulnerable, then around the Strait of Djibouti, and then into the Strait of Hormuz as they go into the Persian Gulf. There's talk that the Eisenhower aircraft carrier, that's where it's going. I'm concerned, folks, that at these choke points, a carrier or any ship can easily be taken out, which then can be used as a reason of why the United States has to mobilize, including instituting a draft. Instituting more funds to go overseas. And it's not like we can't use them here. You know, what they don't want you to realize at the dead of the night on a Friday, the United States Department of Agriculture released a report that the highest level of food insecurity is now in place in the United States. 12.8% of families in our country are food insecure. Food insecure, it doesn't mean that the food that folks are eating has salmonella or E. coli. It means that people don't have the basic access and availability of food. 12.8% of our, never been higher. The only time it ticked up was when Obama was president, when the mumbler and stumbler in chief was vice president. Well, now they set a new record, and that's not an accident or coincidence or incompetence. So we could use the money here. We could use it to secure our border. And every border, because remember, as Mike Cutler has taught us, and Victor Avila, every state is a border state because we have ports of entry in every state. But they want to stoke the flames for escalation. Because out of escalation, they get more power, more control, and more financial resources. And with the added benefit, in quotes, as they see it, more useless eaters die. Blinken, this compromised Secretary of State, warns UN of decisive action if Iran proxies attack Americans. Carrier strike groups on alert. They always tell you what they're about to do. And then we had U.S. warplanes conduct major strike on Iranian proxies in Syria. More escalation. That's without the carrier getting hit yet. Biden to beg Congress for $14 billion in Israeli aid and $60 billion more for Ukraine as part of a $105 billion aid package. 12.8% of the American population food insecure. Record high bankruptcies of businesses in the United States. And just as the globalist cult doctor ordered, more chaos. U.S. issues worldwide caution for all Americans overseas amid growing Gaza-related unrest. Why is that? Because of the escalation on all sides. Believe me, look, Russia and China, they're good with this, right? They're good with this escalation. Look, all it's going to take. Let's say a carrier makes it through the Suez Canal, makes it around the Strait of Djibouti, but as it's going through the Strait of Hormuz, boom, hit. blocks the Strait of Hormuz. That's what, 20% of the world's oil supply, 18% of the world's natural gas supply. You thought the 1970s and the oil embargo and that whole situation was a disaster. Wait, because now you got trillions of dollars of economic financial derivatives in play. Shutting off the Strait of Hormuz, and Russia and China can do it in one fell swoop with a hypersonic missile and a carrier. Boom. Taking down the oil, boom, off the market. Watch what happens. It implodes the financial markets of the United States. And by the way, the BRICS countries that are setting up their new reserve currency and their trade currency, wow, we're right here, folks. So it's not just the globalist side of the equation, of which China and Russia are card-carrying members. But remember, the globalists are upset at Russia and China because, well, they kind of went off the rails and decided, Putin and Xi, you know what, we're putting our countries at risk, our people at risk. Why shouldn't we reap the benefits of when the system comes down? The globalists want the system to come down. They want you to run to get central bank digital currencies and their special drawing rights, their basket of currencies. Meanwhile, Putin and Xi, they've kind of broken off a little bit. Still globalists, but broken off a little bit and said, why don't we get the spoils of all this coming down and hey, let's take it down and let's have our currency. So we run the show, which is why the World Economic Forum and the Soroses of the world and the bankster families of the world are not very happy with Putin and Xi because, well, they cut their own side deal. Watch the Strait of Hormuz. It gets blocked. And in particular, if it gets blocked with a carrier group going down, or a carrier, boy, you better have done what the guests on my platform have told you to do. Have storable food, storable water, means of protecting yourself. Best financial insurance policy on the planet. Physical gold, physical silver. Networking with your community members about, okay, who brings what to the party and who's good with security and who's good with communications and who's good on the medical side and who's good on the communicating side and yeah. Not too late. Almost too late, but not too late. I suggest you do that. Because this world is spinning out of control, and not because of incompetence or accident or coincidence. It's all purposeful. The financial system has been rigged to come down. They needed an event to point to. The thing didn't work so well. The Russia-Ukraine thing was exposed. But they think they can pull it off this way by having you think the reason why the financial system's coming down is because of what's happening over in the Middle East, that they're escalating to the nth degree. But it's because the system was already imploding. And they don't want you to point the finger at the perpetrators of the financial takedown, that being the bankers and the banksters of the world. They want you pointing at, well, it's what happened in the Middle East. Well, it might be a bit related to that, but it was all set to come down anyway. I'm known in medicine for not only my work in orthopedic surgery and sports medicine, but my work in prevention. Prevention is based on identifying issues that the vast majority of the public is unaware of, assessing issues, assessing a situation, and then addressing those issues that you have identified as potentially being harmful to minimize the negative impact on someone's life. And that's what I'm doing here. I put all of my skills in taking care of people from an orthopedic surgery standpoint on hold and put them away, put them in a closet forever. Because I saw something coming. A lot coming. And I felt I could use my contacts and my skills and help people to get ahead of that curve. That's what I do. That's why I do the videos, in spite of them being suppressed and oppressed and censored and blocked. Some still get through. You're seeing this. But where the real meat of the matter is, uncensored, and in depth that I can't go into on any other platform and won't is at davejanda.com. Hope you become part of our freedom family. Yeah, we have expenses to cover. That's why it's $9 a month for the subscription content email service. There are expenses, a lot of expenses, thousands of dollars every month. But it's $9 a month for priceless information you can't get anywhere else. That, according to my subscribers, has saved numerous lives. You can't afford not to have it. Fact. We cover our expenses with that minimal $9 fee a month. That covers our expenses. Nobody's making out like a banshee on this. I hope you become part of our freedom family. You owe it to yourself. Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.